Hey everyone, this video is going to be all over the place. I have been live streaming my development for the last 5 years, which means that people have been able to ask me lots of different questions. And so this video is really just everything that I thought was worth sharing that didn't necessarily fit into another video, and I didn't want to make a specific one just for that. Let's start with typing. Typing is going to be around for at least another 5 or 10 years until you're finally speaking your code into your computer and it knows how to interpret that as different syntax. Typing is probably one of the best bang for your buck that you could get, because imagine if you increase your speed from something like 50 words per minute to just 60, and 5 years multiplied by that plus 20% is going to be just a lot less time thinking about how you're typing what you're typing. I think the way that we improve this is first by memorizing a finger layout chart, and this does a couple of things. One is by using the same finger on the same key every time, you'll improve your accuracy, and the higher your accuracy is, the less you'll waste keystrokes, backspacing, or fixing words. And then the second thing is you won't awkwardly stretch your hand across the keyboard, which could cause strain in the future. I have a technique that I came up with for practicing. This isn't anything too revolutionary, but I use this technique to learn how to type English words on a piano, which is a very unusual typing technique, but that means that you could certainly apply this for learning how to type on a computer keyboard. And the way that it works is you come up with what you're trying to type. So for example, this is a typing test, and whenever you make a mistake, so here we typed the G before the N, here we typed the word test wrong, and then here we typed everything correctly actually, but we just used the wrong finger. You just keep repeating what you're trying to type until you finally get to the end. And by doing this, you'll be able to see exactly where you tend to mess up. So the first time we saw that we messed up the end of the word typing, but then we ended up messing up the word test, which is kind of close to the end of the word typing. So maybe it's really this that's giving us trouble. And that way we could slow down when we get to that section and be more mindful about what we're typing. Full disclosure, I have not actually used a different typing layout, but I did a little bit of research for this. And from what I've heard, essentially, if you're typing it, let's say fewer than about 70 words per minute, you could stand to benefit from this. But I think the reason why, from what I was reading, is that you're learning how to type and you're putting in that time, more so than that these typing layouts are going to do anything better for you in the long run. And some people reported if they were already above 100 words per minute that they got maybe a 2% boost. In my mind, given how long it takes to get used to another typing layout and retrain your muscle memory, it's probably not worth it unless your typing speed is very slow to begin with. With ergonomics, I don't think it's actually really going to help your efficiency, so I only wanted to mention this in passing, but it can help reduce strain, and if you're out of commission from programming for a while, then that's certainly going to lower your overall efficiency. Ergonomics covers anything from your keyboard shape to your keyboard layout to even how you're sitting in your chair or where your arms are positioned. So I think it's worthwhile to focus on to reduce strain, but I don't think it's really going to improve your minute-by-minute efficiency. And the final thing I wanted to say here is that caps lock is typically just to the left of the A key. So it's right next to where your pinky is normally resting on the keyboard. It probably should not be caps lock unless you find yourself using that key as caps lock more than 5 or 10 times per day. So I suggest rebinding it to either control or your super key. For the next section, using tools and hotkeys, I think this boils down to two things: discovery and incorporation. And so with discovery, there are many different ways you can figure out how to use a tool or a hotkey, but you need to know that it exists in order to use it. So one of the simplest ways, if you're just trying to discover hotkeys or functions available to you, is to just look through menus. So literally just go through the menu bar at the top of some program and figure out what this function might do and when you'd use it. Another way is to do searches, and I know this sounds basic, but really these are ways that I've discovered new extensions in the past. You might search for something like top 10 Sublime Text extensions. And then finally, there are cheat sheets. So I've got screenshots of a couple of them here. One of them is the Mac cheat sheet, and the other one is the Visual Studio Code built-in cheat sheet. And I've got the links for those here too. These can help you because you could print them out and use them as a reference, or again, you could just use it to discover what shortcuts might be available. Once we know that a shortcut or tool exists, it all comes down to incorporating it into our workflow. And at its most basic form, you need to just recognize, when do you even use this? So for example, let's say we just learned about copy paste. When you're about to copy a large blob of text by typing it out by hand, that's when you might say, oh, this is a good time to use copy paste. And if you have trouble remembering that, not necessarily copy paste, but something a little bit more advanced that you might use, either a sticky note on your computer monitor or a text note at the top of your to-do list, anything like that can help you incorporate that into your workflow. And what I mean by this note of fix misapplications is, let's say you just learned about a shortcut go-to definition of function, and you have a function that you want to navigate to, and you think you know what file it's in, so you start going to that file instead of just using go-to definition. Maybe you're halfway through this process, and so you think about finishing it up. What I suggest is to undo what you did so far. So instead of opening up the new file, just go back to where you were in the code and then use this new shortcut that you learned about. Once you're incorporating some of these into your workflow, and ideally with hotkeys, a really good tip is to just try ditching your mouse completely for an hour or a day, or at least try to use it very minimally. When we move our hand off of the keyboard, there's some amount of just physical context switching that happens, and you might not be as efficient using the mouse. Now, I take this to the extreme. I feel like if I'm going to have my hand on a mouse, that I might as well have a keyboard on my mouse. So I have a lot of thumb buttons here that I can use to control several hotkeys that I would have used when my hands were on the keyboard. And this next one is specific to coding, and I wrote it as one bug or a class of bugs, but let me give an example here. Let's say you have this path and you're trying to load in your logo image and it's just not working and you don't know why. And you eventually figure out, oh, I made a typo here. This was supposed to be pictures and I forgot the E. Well, if it were just one bug, then that would mean that you just fixed that one spot in the code and it would be solved forever. But chances are, and this happens a lot of times, that maybe there's a function that forms these paths, or maybe there's some other picture where you also made that typo. And this is just one example. There are lots of cases where you'll find you really did have a class of bugs and you'll need to go searching through the code base. The reason this is listed as efficiency is because this is one of those large scale things where you spent the time and the effort to fix one of these bugs. And by leaving the rest in the code base, who knows who else is going to get that in the future and will have to spend that same time and effort. Even if it's you in the future, it's still probably going to take you some amount of time, maybe not as long as the first time, to find that bug. And you could save yourself that effort by putting it in up front when you find it the first time to fix the whole class. This next tip is what I call WILO. And what it stands for is where I left off. But I feel like if I had a clickbait title for this video and I said this one trick will save you so much time, it would be this. All you have to do here is just the end of your day of developing, write WILO, and then describe what you were thinking. Were you working on a bug? What context did you have? What did you investigate? Were you trying to implement a feature? How far did you get? What other areas do you want to explore? What research do you have? When you do this, you're wrapping all of that context at the end of the day into a nice little bundle for you to pick up the next day. Or who knows, maybe you end up getting sick and you take a week off of work. You're going to be very grateful when you come back and you see, oh, that's where I left off. Got it. Now, I take this to the extreme as well, and I tend to write down almost everything, and not even just when I'm leaving off, but as I'm working on something. And I find that it really reduces my context switching that happens, and I'm able to pick up where I left off at the end of any task that I'm doing. We're going to transition into some video demos now for some more eclectic content. I can't imagine a developer in this day and age who doesn't use a browser. And when using a browser, chances are there are some sites you want to go to more than others. There are typically bookmark managers in browsers, but what I've done, and I tend to like this quite a lot, is I just threw every single link that I ever tend to go to onto my homepage. So this is just some really simple HTML, and I can share this out too. But for example, let's say I wanted to upload videos from Twitch to YouTube, I'll just middle click both of these things. If I want to check out various deals for the day, I'll middle click the bottom three of these. I think this is really nice for organizing everything because I've gotten used to the locations of everything by now. And even for things like local development, I've got a bookmark directly to it. I could open it on different ports if I want to. And you're probably used to searching with the address bar in your browser, but different browsers will have this feature where you can manage custom search engines. So for example, let's say I want to go to the Wikipedia page on learning. In order for me to do that, I just type W and then space, and now I'm searching Wikipedia. Same thing with YouTube. I could type something like Adam Learns here, and I can go immediately to YouTube. The way that this works is you go to add search engine in your browser, and then you'll type in a search engine. So here I might say YouTube. We've got a keyword. I like to use something very short here like YT. It says it's not valid because I've already used it before. And then we have our query, and all we have to do is put %s instead of our query string. This way you can do something like, let's say you want to search Stack Overflow for, I don't know, C# sort and array. You can search any site you want very quickly and easily. Many times you find yourself wanting to share a picture or a video of what you've done with your development with somebody else. On Windows, I use a tool called ShareX for that. It's not necessary that you use this tool, but it has a lot of different features, and I wanted to show you some of them in here. So let's say you want to share a picture of how to get to this specific location. So I can use ShareX's arrows to just point to this, for example, or I could use their step function to say we go here and then here and then here. And then when I want to, I can just capture that part of the screen, and now that will be on my clipboard, and I can paste this into here. If I wanted to after that, it's very easy to use that to upload to an image site. I can use the shortcut directly from ShareX to do that, and we'll show that off here. There are some other features of this program. They have a screen measurement tool. So for example, if I wanted to see how big this region is, and maybe I want to drag it around, then I can do that and paste it in. It's now on my clipboard, so we get the dimensions and we get the coordinates. And they also have a color picker tool directly built in. So for example, I could select this green color up here, and now I have the hex code. It's not important that you use all of these features necessarily, but I've found these to come in handy a lot of times. I know we covered a lot there, and I know it's all over the place. In my opinion, you should try to identify what it is that you're doing. So for example, I was taking screenshots a lot, and getting a program to help automate some of those tasks helped out greatly for me. For you, it might be something completely different, so you'll have to identify some of those areas. And for anything where you wanted to know a little bit more, the cheat sheets will cover that. Hope you learned something watching this video. Thank you very much.